So I just got done watching that movie that came out recently called Him. And I'm going to tell you right now, as someone who doesn't usually watch horror movies, this was not a horror movie, okay? The actual true meaning of horror, because I feel like a lot of people, when they talk about horror films, they really just mean like a slasher film or, oh, it didn't have the jump scares in it, or that's not what I mean. I don't care if the film don't make me jump. Horror does not come from jumping. It doesn't come from you scaring me. A film can have jump scares in it. Action movies have jump scares in it. Comedy movies can have jump scares in them. So a jump scare alone does not make something horror. What makes something horror is quite literally being horrified. It's one of those things where you're left with that disturbing sort of, just unsettling feeling. A lot of the films I've watched that have truly left me horrified, it's always one of those things where the ending leaves you with that feeling of like, holy shit. And you're thinking about it and thinking about it and thinking about it. So before I watched the movie, I looked at a lot of reviews on it. And I saw a lot of people saying, I don't like the ending's not good, blah, 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 blah. And I was thinking to myself, well, is the ending really not good, or are people just hating for whatever reason? But the ending really isn't good. Now, one of the main issues is, of course, it had a lot of these kind of supernatural elements in it. It had a lot of things in it that wasn't given a lot of groundwork, right? So the sort of world building, if you will, of the story and of the setting, it wasn't established with very clear rules and understanding. Now, I feel as though this is one of my gripes with horror. One of the major reasons as to why I don't usually watch it is because, in my personal opinion, a lot of times it's a bit finicky in terms of how things work, and it leans too much on vagueness and kind of allows people to fill in the gaps and uses the sort of weirdness surrounding the vague ideas to sort of let people horrify themselves, if you will. But I think what usually makes a lot of horrors really hit people is the ending. Now, for me, where I think Him went wrong is that instead of giving you a horror ending, it gave you a fantasy ending. Now, what do I mean by this? This is the type of ending that is basically wish fulfillment, right? It's like, well, what do we want the protagonist to do in a situation? What do we wish he would do? If this wasn't horror, okay. If this was like some action or adventure thing, or some other kind of more inspirational type of thing like Creed, then I could understand going with an ending that's basically a fuck you to the establishment. Maybe a lot less gory and not as bloody, but I get that the general idea was the fuck you to the establishment, right, or the owners or whatever. But the only problem is, this film is meant to be horror, but with this sort of social commentary, right, on the kind of sports industry, and particularly, of course, with America, with the NFL, probably even the NBA to an extent, but especially the NFL. And so I can see what they was going for. Again, I see it. I clearly get it. I even understand how they were trying to do the sort of spiritual and, allegorical kind of things. And I get everything they was trying to do. But to me, the reason why it didn't land is because you were trying to tell a horror story and you didn't give it a horror ending. In that moment where this guy has a choice between signing his life away or not, in that moment, he should have signed his life away. The cycle should have continued. This film is meant to be a commentary on something that exists in real life. What makes horror so impactful, at least in my opinion, is when you give people an ending where they have to sit back and think, and it recontextualizes the actual thing you were commentating on. So in this case, the NFL. So the audience should have left looking at the NFL with a veneer of horror that they didn't have before. But they're not going to have that with this film because the ending was wish fulfillment and fantastical. It was like, oh, I'm just going to kill everyone. And, there's this weird spiritual shit going on. And it's just a bit weird. And it's like, it doesn't really connect and land. And so the kind of message you were going for, yeah, we see it, but we don't really receive it. We don't really feel it in the way you wanted us to, because you didn't let us actually feel the weight of that message. See, the reality is, in real life, these players and these sports stars and all of that, they're not going out there saying fuck you to the establishment, destroying everything. No, they usually do become pawns of the system, as you're trying to imply, right? They usually do just become another cog in the machine until the younger, better, greater athlete comes along and replaces them. So your film should have reflected that. It was doing great. You were showing all the build-up, showing the wild kind of shit he was going through, the unorthodox methods of training and all of this, and the intensity, great. Editing, great. Production, great. But where you failed is in actually solidifying your message by showing us that, oh, he can't escape the cycle either, just like they can't in real life. And so now when we go and see these players in NFL, we start to think about the movie Him, and we're like, damn, The way they sign these contracts and they're stuck in that cycle, just like what happened to that kid. That's how it's supposed to, like, to me, that is what a horror ending would be. Horror is not, we get what we want and we kill off everybody and woo, happy days. Like, that's not, like, is it supposed to be horror because it's blood and gore? Again, this is what I was saying at the start. Horror in the modern context a lot of times seems to be more slasher, than actual horror. Like, and I don't like that. So with this particular film, I just don't think it really gave you a horror ending. I don't think it was much of a horror film for that reason. It had the potential to be. It was starting off with a lot of the ingredients of what could lead into that. But I think that it didn't linger enough on a lot of the moments and the scenes and the set pieces that would have actually been horrifying. And I for sure don't think that the ending stuck the landing and really left you feeling horrified. That is what it should have done. We should not be walking away feeling like the protagonist won in this situation. That's just my opinion. Again, I don't watch a shit ton of horror. I'm not an expert on horror, but I am a storyteller. And in my personal opinion, if I was to write that story, I would have made it that the protagonist was trapped in a cycle so that the audience leaves understanding my commentary. Because that's what you was trying to do. You was trying to make some kind of social commentary on this particular aspect of our culture to do with sports. Cool, great. That's a really cool original idea. But then leave us with that. Actually give us the weight of that and make us have to sit back and think, damn, yeah, like, they really do be signing their life away like that. But he didn't. He didn't sign his life away. And he kind of got, in a sense, what people want. The kind of wish fulfillment and whatever. So it just kind of, to me, cheapens it, it weakens it, it flattens it. And that's why, unfortunately, as much as it had the potential to be a good horror film, I just think him ended up being a lot more fantasy than horror.